Hey book friends, welcome back to the channel. And so I'm finishing out my favorite books of all time series with my favorite fantasy books. So like I've been saying over these past couple of weeks, which I will link above, my favorite historical fiction books of all time, as well as my favorite mystery thriller books of all time. But what I've been saying in all of these videos is that I have been looking back and contemplating the books that have just really impacted me recently, as well as kind of back since I became a reader. And so I have quite the list here that I'm going to share with you, but I'm really excited to share it. So stay tuned for my favorite fantasy books of all time. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. And so, favorite fantasy books. I wasn't sure where to start this video because I kind of have favorites that span 20 years, but I'm just gonna start it with my favorite. My favorite series ever is my Harry Potter series. These are just straight up comfort books for me. I have the whole set. I have somehow lost all of the dust jackets, but I don't want new sets because these ones have memories with them. So like for instance, this is all dirty, soot and dirt because I used to fight fires during the summers when I was in college. And this fifth book came out in the summertime, and so it's just really dirty because I took it on the road with me, and those memories are just good. Those are good memories for me. So I might pick up some fun dust jackets. I'll put up a picture of the ones I'm looking at. Anyway, I digress as to my favorite books of all time. So these books are just nostalgic books. I feel like I can read and reread them more often, actually re-listen to them, because Jim Dale is the most amazing narrator of all times. But I just get so much enjoyment out of them every time I re-listen to them. I feel like the world is so well thought out. I feel like the characters have those ups and downs that are just fun, and I just anticipate them, and there's nothing quite like just a nostalgic comfort book, which the whole Harry Potter series is that for me. So it had to go first. It just had to. So another one that is kind of borderline up there, and I do wish I had a better copy of this, but that is The Lord of the Rings, as well as The Hobbit. I love these books. I love these books. I read this book, this exact book. It's kind of in tatters, but I read this in high school for the first time. And you guys, I just loved it. I even loved when it kind of got a little slow when you're talking like Rohan and all those things. But this story is just so epic and just so big in nature that I just think it is so worth reading. Even if like the language is a little bit tough and you've seen the movies and you're not sure if you want to read the books are so worth it. I get the itch to reread them about every 2 years or so. Okay, so those aside, I'm just gonna go in like a random order of books that I have just loved over the years. And I'm gonna start with this one. So this is The Host by Stephenie Meyers. And granted, Stephenie Meyers is like the Twilight author, right? Which I read Twilight, I will admit it. But The Host I really liked. I thought it was a really clever story. So this is about this time in the future when an alien species comes and takes over Earth. And they do it in a way that they have to take the host, so they have to like invade the human sort of idea and live in their bodies. But then there's like this resistance, like these people who have not been invaded yet, who are trying to hide out and be like the aliens, if you will. I forget what they're called. But it's really fun because there is this one girl who is trying to protect her brother. She's trying to find like her uncle, and she gets caught and captured, and then she gets one of these parasites put in her. But then the issue is usually the host kind of goes willingly and they just succumb to this invasion. But this girl has a really strong will, and she fights kind of back against the invader, and so they kind of talk to each other in her mind. Like she won't fully be taken over, but then the alien parasite is trying to find kind of the enclave of different people who are resisting, and she wants to use this girl to do it. So it's just, I feel like I did a terrible job of explaining that, but I really liked the book. I thought it was just a fun concept, and it is a YA book, so it's not too graphic or detailed or complex in any way. It's just a really fun ride. So I really enjoyed that book. Next on my list is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. So I read this like 2 or 3 years ago, something like that, and I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed it because of the heist story. So I can't even remember the main characters. I got it from the library, so I can't hold it up for you. But the basic idea is there's kind of this mismatched group of like thieves and thugs who all band under this man, and I think his name was Kaz or Kel. It doesn't matter. But he's kind of their ringleader, and he has been offered this like impossible heist that will come with a ton of money, and it will like allow them all to live freely. So it is worth the risk, even though this is like an insane heist, like very little chance of making it happen. And I just really like heist stories. I enjoy the intrigue. I enjoy the planning stages of them. I enjoy when it's actually getting pulled off and things aren't going well and what do they do, and they usually get caught, and all of that stuff is just really fun. And so I really enjoyed this one. I need to read the second in this series. I actually want to read a lot of the different books by Leigh Bardugo, but I really enjoyed Six of Crows. I thought it was really fun and just a fun fantasy. And so, speaking of heist books, I'd say this book actually was even more a favorite. This is more of a favorite heist book, maybe because I love the whole series. So, this is Mistborn. So, the first book is called The Final Empire, and in this world there is this man, this lord ruler who has been ruling for like 1,000 years, and the basic premise was, what if there was this hero that was going to save the world, but yet the hero failed and the bad guy won? And this is what happens to a society when the bad guy wins. So he's been ruling over them in terrible ways for thousands of years until Kelsier comes along and again forms this band of like thugs and thieves and outlaws and all of that to join him in overthrowing the Lord Ruler. So in this book there is magic involved, and I'm actually not sure if Six of Crows there was. I don't remember. I really should reread that book. But the magic in this book is called allomancy, which is the ability to draw powers out of metals once they're ingested. And different mistings have different abilities based on what metal they can control. But if someone has the ability to control all the metals, they're called a Mistborn. And Kelsier was one of those, as well as a girl named Vin. And she's like this street orphan who gets brought onto this team. And it goes from there. And it is a fantastic book. I felt like the just writing style of Brandon Sanderson is so top notch that you're just drawn into this world. You really feel for them. You really want them to overcome, and you just feel really fearful that they're not, because the bad guys in here are pretty scary. So I really like this book, the whole series, honestly. So that one, another series. So I'll just hold this up since I'm on the topic of series. Another fantasy series that I love is this one, so The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. So this book, these books, all of them, are just so much fun. I feel like they land in historical fantasy because it is historical in nature. The books are set in Russia in like the 1600s, during a time when there's kind of a fight between like Orthodox Christianity as well as kind of the local folklore that's always been present in these societies. And this is kind of the center of these books, as well as a girl named Vasya. And this book is a little bit of her coming of age. Like, it starts when she's younger and follows her a bit as she gets older, because her mother had powers, but she passed away. And then her father remarried to this woman who was very anti witches and magic and sprites and spirits and all these things. And so there was a lot of conflict there. And so Vasya was a very free-spirited girl who also had powers. And then there's this legend of the Frost Demon, I think it was called, or the Winter King, I forget, one of those. And he is like the big bad demon of the woods who brings winter or doesn't bring winter and things like that. And she interacts with him in a lot of these books, and I loved that interaction. I just really enjoyed the atmosphere of these books because they're a little slow getting into, but I felt like they got better as the books progressed. Like the last one, The Winter of the Witch, was so good. I just loved it. So these are all on my list of favorite fantasy books. Another set of books that I don't own, I got from the library. I read these, I think, post-college, but they still are very nostalgic to me, and those are the Eragon series. So that's by Christopher Paolini, and I read all three. I think it was Eragon, Eldest, and then I think Inheritance are the three of them. Anyway, I really enjoyed it. It's about this boy named Eragon who was living with his family in the woods of this big kingdom, and it's kind of this oppressed kingdom by the king. I forgot, Galbatorix or something like that. The king was oppressing the people, and at the beginning of these books, Eragon finds this blue stone, which wasn't really a stone, it was an egg, which turned into a dragon egg, which he then imprinted with and became like linked to this dragon, right? And dragon eggs are extremely rare in this area and kind of in the world in general at this point. They used to be more common. There used to be legends of these dragon riders and these men who could ride dragons and were bonded to dragons, but it didn't happen to like everyday people. And then this happened to Eragon, and then it starts this adventure. He has to then join these people who are fighting the king, and he has now this dragon, and now he's like a person of interest, and it was just really, really good. I enjoyed all three of them, and talking about them now makes me want to reread them. I feel like I should reread them. That would be really fun. So Eragon is on my list of favorite fantasy books for sure. Another one, I read this more recently, but I loved it. So Spitting Silver by Naomi Novik. This was such a fun book. So this has a bit of a Rumpelstiltskin retelling aspect to it. It's about this girl, Miriam, who is part of this small town that borders the woods, the winter woods, and she is the daughter of a moneylender, and her father is just kind of a bad moneylender, and he doesn't make people pay their debts, and so her family is very poor until she starts to take over, and she starts to demand that their debts get paid back, and she has to be a little harsh and a little tough to do it. And then she becomes known as someone who can spin silver into gold, if you will, and she gets on the radar of the Stark King, which is kind of fey creatures who live in this winter woods that border the town, and she gets taken into his world, and it goes from there. And it's just really entertaining. I thought it was well done. I was very attached to the characters. I really liked the atmosphere of the book. I just liked it. It was a very good book. So that's on my list of favorites. The last thing on my list, I'll have to put a picture up here, is something I read like 15 years ago, and that was Ender's Game. So this is sci-fi, not fantasy, but I'm putting it on here anyway because I don't really have very many sci-fi books I read or that are my favorites, but this is such a good book. And I have a story about this book because I was listening to it on audio when I was like moving. I was moving from Montana to Colorado. I was by myself in my car with all my stuff when I was like 25 or something like that. And I started listening to this on audiobook, and it was so good and so distracting that I like missed my turn for where you should be ending up in Colorado, and instead I ended up in North Dakota. It was so terrible when I realized it, but it was all because of this book. So this is about a boy named Ender who is part of a society that has been attacked by like hostile, evil alien species or something like that. And so they're always focused on fighting an invasion in case these species come back to Earth. And so the premise of this book is that they are trying to recruit children to this battle school to like raise them up to fight this alien species. I'm probably doing a terrible job of explaining this, but it was such a good book, and it just pulled me in. And I love a good school setting, which is probably because I just love Harry Potter so much, like I said. But I enjoyed the school setting. I enjoyed how he was kind of having to fight for his spot, and he was feeling lonely, but he was really gifted and really good at what he did. So I loved it. I loved the twist at the end. Such a good book. I think that is it on my list for favorite fantasy books. I have always loved good fantasy books, and I'm really getting more into it lately. And so I would love to hear some recommendations of your favorite fantasy books, especially if you are a fantasy book reader. I'm getting back into it, so I have so many on my list, and I'm excited to get to them all. But I would love to hear your recommendations. And also let me know if you have read some of these books or if you are excited to pick them up. So yeah, that is what I have for this video. If you like these types of videos, like favorite videos of all time types videos, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you want to. But otherwise, I will see you guys in the next book video. Okay guys, take care.